Boston Sprinter is the first North American passenger route to be created for Train Sim World since the release of the Peninsula Corridor back in 2019. And since then, American players have been heavily suggesting and anticipating a new American route. And now, we finally have one. While it has some issues, I think this is a good sign of DTG improving the quality of their routes and a sign of more to come with American content. Before we get into the video, I'm going to ask that all of you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. First booting up the route was a long process, especially with all of the issues with the PS4 version of TSW Rush Hour. It was a complete mess, but since that's not specific to the route, I won't be talking about it in this video, but probably another one, talking fully about the issues with TSW Rush Hour and its release on consoles. After the route finally loaded, I was met with some horrible frame rates and a sub 20 FPS range. I understand that I'm on the PlayStation 4 and it doesn't have a lot of power, but that is insane, even for a route of this caliber. After the route introduction and tutorials, it was sort of smooth sailing from there, with frame rates in the near 25 to 30 FPS range. Taking some quick runs with the provided trains shows that the route is highly detailed and a lot of time and effort was put into making it look authentic and feel real. On the approach to Boston South, you can see the tall skyscrapers of the downtown Boston area. I like how parts of the route look like the approach to Boston Back Bay from Ruggles. As you're going through the tunnel, you can start to see the lights from the Back Bay station and it just looks nice. Each station is relatively well detailed and modeled, with a few reused textures here and there like some of the German platform signs and the inaccurate LIRRPIS screens. They've explained why the inaccurate PIS screens were included though, noting that they didn't have the reference to create the actual PIS screens, and while their excuse is understandable, I think they should have worked more with the community in advance to get the reference for the PIS screens on this route. The actual section in between Boston and Providence is well detailed too. There aren't any real big pieces of scenery there, but the route still feels realistic, going through the tree-lined parts of southern Massachusetts, and then finally entering the more dense Providence area of Rhode Island. The route also really gives off the rush hour vibe, being extremely busy during rush hours and having the crowds tapering off during off-peak hours. It doesn't just stop at the passengers though, as the timetable is extremely busy as well. Sometimes at Boston South Station, 3 trains can be entering and leaving, all at once. This is unique to this route and it just showcases how busy it is and just how many services go through the station in one day. Overall though, it is a well modeled and detailed route that gives off the rush hour vibe, better than some other routes like Hauptstrecke Hamburg to Lübeck, Peninsula Corridor, and even the HS1 section on Southeastern High Speed. The quality of the route doesn't just stop with the scenery and the route itself though, it extends to the rolling stock and the sound quality too. The rolling stock is phenomenal on this route, with the rolling stock that was previously in the game seeing massive improvements and changes to make them feel just that bit newer. The ACS64 has seen a complete overhaul of its sound. Now it sounds like the real thing. Take a listen. While I don't agree with the choice of including the F40PH in this route, as I would have preferred another train, like the HSP46, as I think that train would have been more interesting and it would have been nice to see a new locomotive come with the route, I do like the train itself. It's well detailed and sounds very nice. The only issue I have with this train is that the brakes are way too loud. The same issue applies to the cab car, the CTC3, where if you start applying brakes, the noise made starts drowning out everything else. It's kinda annoying since you have to listen to it each time you apply the brakes, but other than that, the sound design is nice. This is the first route in a long time in which you can actually hear track noise and some good running noise. This is something I've knocked DTG for a lot in the past, but it seems like they're getting a good grip on it and listening to the community in terms of sound design. This is something that increases everyone's immersion in the game because in real life, the trains actually sound this way. They don't sound like they're running on continuously grinded rail as they would have you believe with the Bakerloo line, Southeastern High Speed, and various other routes. One thing I do wish is that we were able to use more of the controls in the cab and that these controls made an audible sound change. What I mean by this is allow us to use some of the lesser controls like the AC and let us do other things like going through the screens to get to the cruise control. Adding these other controls and making them usable would increase the immersion of the player. I love getting into BR423 on HMA and turning on the AC, and I like that you can actually hear the difference between the AC being on and the AC being off. These little details make you feel more immersed in the game and give you more of a feeling of being a real train operator. At least the trains not including some of these things don't take away from the actual driving experience, but that is what the buggy safety system does. The safety systems on this route are just broken. Sometimes they'll trigger the emergency brakes as soon as the speed limit changes instead of giving the operator time to acknowledge and stop, making it impossible to use, and at other times it'll just be way too cautious, slowing you down for something 6 miles away from where it actually is. It is extremely inconsistent. You'll get random drops in the speed limit where the line speed could be 120 miles per hour, but the ATC and access are slowing you down to 45 miles per hour. And this isn't just because there is a train ahead or a switch. Nope, just randomly slowing you down. This causes you to be extremely late to stations. I did the reverse engineering scenario and ended up returning to Boston South 20 minutes late. This is both a result of DTG number 1 getting the safety systems wrong, making them too cautious and slowing your speed down unnecessarily, and 2, having the AI create the timetable instead of someone going through and manually creating the real life timetable of the route. Now I can already hear it. Some of you are going to say, well, why don't you just turn off the safety systems and don't worry about it? But that is not the right way to think. The safety systems add a level of immersion to the route. These are things that the real life operators use and some players want to play the game realistically. Face it, TSW is at heart a simulator and all of the functions on the train need to be working properly. All in all, I think this route is great and highly detailed. I'm happy to see another American passenger route in the game, and I'm happy that it was done correctly, without too many glaring inaccuracies as routes like LIRR and the original NEC route did. I hope that the rush hour theme stays even after the Brighton Mainline route releases, as I really like this theme. I also hope that DTG continues to create American passenger routes in the near future, and not just forget about them for almost 2 years. This route was a good one, and I hope to see DTG continue this level of quality and accuracy for future routes. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this on the channel, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Peace.